He's very upset about how he's being treated, and his ex-wife Sarah seeks solace in the secret doghouse bar, and she's apparently persuading staff members to stay late so she can have a drink with them while they basically lick their wounds. But it's been a terrible time for the former prince. As we say, every single week there have been these revelations. More and more emails have been leaked, and more people are trying to distance themselves from him. It's basically a lot of loneliness.
Something strange is happening behind the gates of Royal Lodge, something that even longtime royal insiders did not expect. A home that once represented stability, unity, and an unusual kind of post-divorce companionship between Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson has suddenly become the scene of quiet tension, whispered conversations, and emotionally charged decisions. And now, as the final days inside this historic residence tick away, a new claim has emerged, one that suggests Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has made a shocking demand of the woman who has stood by him through public disgrace, humiliation, and exile. If true, it marks one of the most dramatic turns yet in the strange partnership between the former couple. But what does it really mean, and what happens next as they prepare to leave the only home they've shared for more than 2 decades? Before we dive in, there's something I need to share with you. Over the past few days, thousands have watched these stories unfold, but most haven't subscribed. If you're one of them, I invite you now to join us. Subscribe to Crownverse so you never miss the next chapter in this unfolding royal history. From the outside, Royal Lodge seems serene, a grand estate nestled in Windsor Great Park, its sweeping lawns and ivy-covered walls carrying the weight of generations of royal history. But behind that calm exterior, the atmosphere has reportedly shifted, and it all begins with the circumstances that led Andrew to this moment. After years of scandal, legal battles, and public backlash connected to his association with Jeffrey Epstein, a connection he insists involved no wrongdoing, Andrew has faced the slow erosion of both his public standing and his royal privileges. He previously stepped back from royal duties, lost his military associations, and was instructed to stop using his HRH style. Yet despite everything, Royal Lodge remained the last symbol of continuity in his life, the home he shared with Sarah Ferguson long after their marriage ended. But according to recent reports, that final sanctuary is slipping away. The claim that Andrew has agreed to leave Royal Lodge is widely circulating in media coverage, though it's important to note that his departure timeline remains unconfirmed by Buckingham Palace. What is broadly understood is that King Charles has made clear, privately but not publicly, that Andrew cannot remain in such a large, costly residence when he no longer has any active role within the working royal family. This push began long before the latest media storm and has grown more urgent as royal finances tighten and the monarchy seeks a more streamlined, modern image. Now, as the final days inside this historic residence tick away, a new claim has emerged, one that suggests Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has made a shocking demand of the woman who has stood by him through public disgrace, humiliation, and exile. If true, it marks one of the most dramatic turns yet in the strange partnership between the former couple. But what does it really mean? And what happens next as they prepare to leave the only home they've shared for more than 2 decades? Woman's Day magazine recently published an unverified claim that Andrew has demanded Sarah be kept away from him during their final days at Royal Lodge. It is crucial to emphasize that this allegation is unverified, and neither Andrew nor Sarah Ferguson has commented publicly on it. Still, the report has sparked intense speculation, partly because it breaks so sharply from the narrative the public has come to expect from the pair, a narrative of unity, mutual support, and an unusual but famously warm post-marriage friendship. If the claim is true, a big if, it suggests that the internal pressure surrounding Andrew's future may be causing a deep rift in a relationship that survived far more than most royal partnerships. According to the same report in Woman's Day magazine, Sarah Ferguson is angry over this alleged demand, and observers claim she has become lonely inside the lodge. The report even suggests she's been begging staffers to stay longer to avoid being alone. These statements, again, remain unverified. Emotional descriptions of what Sarah is feeling have not been confirmed by her representatives or by the palace. However, the story has struck a chord because it highlights the emotional toll of leaving the one home where she and Andrew were able to maintain a connection that defied public expectations. The idea that Sarah has become increasingly isolated within the lodge paints a picture of a woman who, despite her outward resilience and public composure, may be struggling with the uncertainties ahead. She's always spoken highly of her bond with Andrew. Through countless financial scandals, tabloid storms, and the public downfall of Andrew's reputation, she has remained steadfastly loyal. The suggestion that she now feels distance or rejection from him is a powerful and emotionally charged narrative, and one that audiences around the world have reacted strongly to, even if the claim has not been verified. Additional claims, this time from The Sun, state that Andrew and Sarah have been leading separate lives inside Royal Lodge, supposedly living in different wings of the vast estate. According to this article, they reportedly come together only for meals, lunch and dinner, and those are the moments when they discuss their futures. But it is important to emphasize once again that this depiction comes from unnamed insiders quoted in The Sun, and the royal household has not confirmed any of it. That said, the idea that they are eating together but otherwise living separate lives adds complexity to a relationship that already defies the usual boundaries of post-divorce arrangements. The Sun's report goes further, alleging that their conversations about the future have become intense and emotionally charged. Another unverified claim states that Sarah Ferguson is panicking about what comes next, fearful of being caught in the crosshairs, and deeply concerned for herself and for their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. This depiction, yet again unverified, reflects the anxiety that the media frequently attributes to members of the royal family during moments of uncertainty. Whether this is a precise reflection of Sarah's emotional state or simply an interpretation crafted to heighten the drama of the moment, the fact remains that the future for both Andrew and Sarah is undoubtedly unclear, and unclear futures always fuel tension. These unverified reports collectively form a picture of a household under pressure, emotionally fractured and overshadowed by the looming decision they may have no power to avoid, the end of their shared life at Royal Lodge. But before accepting any of it as fact, it is important to remember that Sarah herself has always projected an image of strength, optimism, and even humor in the face of adversity. In multiple public appearances and interviews over the years, she's spoken warmly about Andrew and described him as her soulmate in a platonic sense. She has been her fiercest defender during the darkest moments of public scrutiny, insisting that he is a kind man who deserves compassion rather than ridicule. This makes the claims about emotional estrangement particularly dramatic. If true, they would mark a significant turning point in a partnership that endured nearly 30 years of turbulence.
But regardless of whether every claim is accurate, there is no denying that Andrew is facing a personal and symbolic downfall unlike anything seen in modern royal history. The description used by some media outlets, that he is entering an internal exile, is not an official term, but the metaphor captures the gravity of his situation. He is not being banished formally, but circumstances have forced him into a kind of quiet, isolated existence. Stripped of duties, pushed from public life, and increasingly marginalized within the royal structure, Andrew's move from Royal Lodge could be interpreted as the final stage of that withdrawal. The subject of where he will go next remains contested in the media. Some outlets have suggested he will move into Frogmore Cottage, the former home of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Others claim he is resisting that option completely. But the text you provided specifically states that Andrew is expected to move to the King's private Sandringham estate in Norfolk sometime in the new year. This is a reported detail, though it has not been confirmed by Buckingham Palace. What is clear is that relocating Andrew away from Windsor, away from Royal Lodge, and away from the symbolic comfort of the life he once lived may be a key part of King Charles's strategy to reshape the modern monarchy. This moment, then, is bigger than a housing dispute. It is a part of a larger transformation, a generational shift. King Charles has long envisioned a leaner monarchy, one built around duty, service, and stability. Andrew's scandal-ridden past stands in direct conflict with that vision. Moving him quietly out of Royal Lodge may be a way of drawing boundaries around what the monarchy stands for and signaling a fresh start for the institution as a whole. But as the king makes these decisions, there are human consequences that moviegoers and casual royal watchers might overlook. For Andrew, Royal Lodge is not just a residence, it is his sanctuary in a world that increasingly sees him as a symbol of disgrace. For Sarah, it has been a place of belonging, a rare environment where she did not feel like an outsider, as she often has, in the stricter segments of royal life. Royal Lodge was the place that allowed her to remain close to her daughters, close to Andrew, and close to the only version of home she had inside the monarchy. What happens to that sense of belonging after the move remains an open question. The emotional narrative embedded within the situation is compelling because it reveals the tension between public scandal and private loyalty, between royal protocol and personal affection, between duty to the crown and duty to the heart. Even if some of the most dramatic claims remain unverified, the emotional core of this moment rings undeniably true. A chapter is ending, and no one inside Royal Lodge seems ready for what comes next. Now, let's take a step back and examine the long and complex relationship between Andrew and Sarah to understand why this moment matters. They married in 1986, divorced a decade later, and yet remained so close that many believed they would eventually remarry. But their relationship evolved into something more unique than a romantic rekindling. They became companions, partners, and emotional allies through some of the most turbulent chapters of their lives. Sarah stood by Andrew when he was thrust into global scandal due to his association with Epstein. She defended him publicly when no other royal would. She helped manage the fallout from the disastrous BBC Newsnight interview, and she remained a constant presence at Royal Lodge, even as the rest of the royal family distanced themselves. For Sarah, leaving Royal Lodge would mean stepping away from that sense of unity. And if the unverified claim that Andrew demanded she be kept away from him is true, the emotional blow would be even sharper. But given the long and complicated history they share, the idea that Andrew would abruptly demand distance is difficult to reconcile with what the public knows about their bond. This is part of why the rumor has generated such strong reactions. Its emotional impact lies in how unexpected it feels. Then there are their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. Their roles within the royal family have always been delicate. Neither is a working royal, neither is at the center of the monarchy's inner circle, and both have had to carefully balance their public roles with their private lives. The unverified claim that Sarah fears for their future adds another layer to the story. If their parents are forced from Royal Lodge, the home where they grew up and the place that anchored their family dynamic, it could affect how they navigate their own relationship with the institution. We must also acknowledge the broader context, the ongoing scrutiny surrounding Andrew and the Epstein scandal. Although Andrew has consistently denied all allegations, and although none of the claims have been proven in court, the public perception of him has been profoundly damaged. Even within the royal family, his position is precarious. King Charles appears firm in his intent to limit Andrew's visibility, and moving him to a smaller, more secluded property would help further distance the monarchy from old controversies. As we look at the final days at Royal Lodge, we see a situation loaded with symbolism. This is the end of an era not only for Andrew, but for Sarah, their daughters, and their decades-long attempt to maintain some form of normalcy within the chaos of royal life. It is also a moment of transition for the monarchy, as King Charles continues reshaping the institution he inherited. But what comes next? Where do they go from here? For now, the future remains uncertain. If Andrew does move to Sandringham, it will represent a new chapter in a life marked by dramatic highs and devastating lows. If Sarah remains connected to him in some way, whether emotionally, practically, or through the shared bond of their daughters, their relationship may endure, even if the dynamics shift. But if the unverified claims about emotional distance prove untrue, the pair may emerge from this transition still aligned, still united in their unconventional partnership. But if those claims hold any truth, then Royal Lodge's final days may be remembered as the moment when even the strongest bond in Andrew's life began to change under the weight of scandal and royal pressure. In the end, whether the stories being told by Woman's Day magazine or The Sun are accurate or exaggerated, the emotional reality remains. Something is ending at Royal Lodge, and what replaces it is unclear.
The world watches as Andrew faces the consequences of his past, as Sarah navigates uncertainty, and as their family stands at a crossroads.